We're going to call this. She's just speaking the truth. Okay, we're going to call this meeting to order. All right. This meeting of Committee Affairs and Planning Committee is held in a hybrid format with virtual and in-person participation of members of public, staff, and council. This meeting is also being live streamed and may be viewed online at ajax.ca/live. A friendly reminder to all participants to please use your microphone at all times for the benefit of those participating in the council chambers and joining remotely. To those making submissions as part of the public meeting, please ensure you sign in using the sheet available at the accessible podium to preserve rights available to you under the Planning Act or other applicable legislation. I will now call this meeting to order. We would like to begin by saying that okay, let me just start one more time. We would like to begin this meeting by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is situated within the traditional and treaty territory of the Mississaugas. More specifically, the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nations, signatory of the Gunshot Treaty of 1788 and the Williams Treaty of 1923. This land is and will continue to be home to the Indigenous people. Let us acknowledge the mistakes and traumas of the past through authenticity and support truth and reconciliation. Let us engage and celebrate Indigenous communities by being leaders of action and acknowledging the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People and the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's recommendations towards truth and reconciliation. Let us keep these principles close as we continue towards truth and reconciliation and as we move forward with kindness and respect as a community. Okay, I have a motion to adopt the minutes of the regular meeting of May the 5th, 2025, moved by Councillor Tyler Morin, seconded by Councillor Bauer. Is there any questions or comments on those minutes? Seeing none, the vote is open. Thank you. Okay, so we have the draft submission, the draft plan submission applicant of CA 2025-01 232224 Ontario Inc., the southeast corner of Carrison Drive East and Salem Road North. You got it. Director Romanowski.
Thank you, Chair Crawford. I'll turn it over to Lauren Taylor to walk us through the public meeting component of this application.
Hi, Lauren. Thank you.
Hi there. Good afternoon to the Chair, members of Council, staff, as well as members of the public who are joining us. My name is Lauren Taylor. I'm the planner responsible for processing the submitted development application. My presentation will provide an overview of the site, a summary of the proposal, the land use planning context, and a staff recommendation for the application. This will serve as a public meeting where residents can address council and town staff about the proposed development. The subject lands are located on the southeast corner of Carrison Drive East and Salem Road North and currently have no municipal address. The subject lands are currently surrounded by the following land uses. On the north side of Carrison Drive East are other lands owned by the applicant, which are subject to site plan application SP4/25 for 2 multi-unit warehouses with offices. Further north is Blowers Crescent subdivision, which is made up of 11 employment blocks, 10 of which are currently vacant, and 1 is occupied by the Institute of Diabetes and Endocrinology. To the northeast is the existing H&M warehouse. To the east is a vacant lot zoned Prestige Employment with a holding, and further east is the Peacobbs Horseman Center and Casino Ajax. Directly to the south is the future Ringer Road extension, and further south is a commercial plaza with Home Depot, Walmart, and Cineplex Odeon directly backing onto the future Ringer Road extension. To the southwest, there is another commercial plaza, including Costco warehouse. On the west side of Salem Road North is the Gordon Food Service Distribution Center. The purpose of the draft plan of subdivision application S-A-2025-01 is to create a mixed-use block. Block 1 has 8.3 hectares, and an employment block, which is Block 2, which is 2.04 hectares, and a public road on the subject lands. Block 1 of the proposed subdivision is subject to a previously issued Minister's Zoning Order, known as an MZO. On September 20th, 2024, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing issued MZO Ontario Regulation 366/24, which permits the development of a phased mixed-use project with approximately 2,873 apartment dwelling units and a minimum of 40,000 square meters of non-residential floor space with buildings up to 25 stories in height. The proposed development of the subject lands is currently broken down into 3 different phases. For Phase 1, the applicant proposes to construct the majority of Street A from Carrison Drive East with a temporary offset cul-de-sac towards the south end as an interim condition to accommodate the proposed development of Block 2, which consists of a proposed employment building. Phase 2 will include the eastern portion of Block 1 for mixed-use development in accordance with the MZO. Lastly, Phase 3 will include the western portion of Block 1 for mixed-use development in accordance with the MZO. The applicant also proposes to remove the temporary cul-de-sac to complete the remaining portion of Street A, as well as construct Ringer Road to the eastern limits of the subject lands to accommodate the development. The proposed subdivision consists of 2 blocks and a public road. Site plan applications will be required for the future development of each block, which will include architectural review. Both blocks will be required to be designed in accordance with the urban design and built form policies of the official plan. Parkland dedication will be determined through the future site plan applications for each block. The MZO requires a minimum of 7,500 square meters of park or publicly accessible open space. The west portion of the subject lands along Salem Road North are designated as prestige employment, and the remainder of the subject lands are designated general employment within the Town of Ajax official plan. The MZO for Block 1 allows a mixed-use development with residential and non-residential uses, which overrules the employment designation outlined above. As a result of the MZO, Block 1 is within the Regional Centers designation of the Durham Regional Official Plan, also known as the ROPE. Block 2 remains within the employment areas designation of the ROPE. The Ajax official plan has not yet been updated to incorporate the recent changes to the ROPE, including the regional centers designation applying to Block 1. It is expected that in the near future the town will complete a comprehensive town-initiated amendment to update the Ajax official plan in accordance with the new ROPE. The subject lands are currently zoned Prestige Employment Zone within the Town of Ajax zoning bylaw 95-2003 as amended. Block 1 is subject to MZO OREG 366/24, which overrules the PE zone and permits a residential mixed-use development. Block 2 is subject to the PE zone, which permits a variety of non-residential uses, including office, personal service shops, restaurants, clinics, daycares, and a variety of other uses, including as an accessory retail sales outlet associated with manufacturing, processing, or assembly facilities on site. Zoning exception 66 applies to the subject lands, which sets a minimum lot area of 0.2 hectares at 8.3 hectares and 2.04 hectares respectively. The proposed blocks 1 and 2 meet the minimum lot size requirements of exception 66. The proposed draft plan of subdivision application has been reviewed against the provincial policy statement, the regional official plan, and the town's official plan. As outlined in the staff report, the proposal is consistent with the provincial planning statement and conforms to regional and town policies. The subject lands are zoned for mixed use and employment uses. The proposed development of a mixed use block and an employment block will serve to increase the range of dwelling types, employment opportunities, and shopping options available within the community to meet the needs of current and future residents. The proposed development represents an intensification opportunity within the settlement area that is efficient and cost-effective for servicing, transportation, and public transit systems. Therefore, staff recommend approval of the draft plan of subdivision application, subject to the recommendations provided in this report. That concludes my presentation. I am happy to answer any questions that you have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Looks like a tiny little town. First on the speakers list is Councillor Henry.
Thank you. Yes, it does look like a tiny little town. So I'm the counselor for the area, so local counselor for the area. So some of the questions I have, is this going to be, through the chair, is this going to be an apartment or a condo? Do we know?
Through the chair to Councillor Henry, not sure whether this would be condominium or rental at this stage. I'm not sure if the applicant who's present would be able to answer that question.
Would they be able to?
They'll have a chance.
Okay, we'll give them a chance after. Okay. So with regards to schools, we've had some concerns from a few residents with regards to no elementary schools in the immediate area, and children, we're trying to create walkable communities and having children walk to school. So I know that we talked in other developments about possibly having a satellite school location. This is a huge development with a lot of space to incorporate something like that. Is there any plans? Have we heard anything about that?
Through the chair to Councillor Henry, all 4 school boards, local school boards, were circulated as part of the subdivision application. The Durham District School Board just provided comments that they had no objection to this subdivision application, and the Durham Catholic District School Board advised the same, and they identified that students in this project would attend St. Teresa of Calcutta at 15 Fishlock Street, which is approximately 1.5 kilometers away. So through the future site plan applications for each phase of the development, the school boards will be circulated again, and they'll be able to provide any additional comments at that time about locating schools within the project. But at this point, we don't have any specific details on school locations.
So just to clarify, and I know the school well because I was parent chair at the school, my daughter went there. We got rid of all the portables over there because it was crazy at one point. It became a feeder school for a lot of kids from Ward 2, even though it's in a Ward 1 zone. So now we're creating another development in Ward 2, and we're saying that this is the school that is the closest in proximity, but it doesn't, like, in the comments, I don't know if this is normal to receive in comments, even though they're saying this is the school that would potentially be the school, it doesn't mean that they can accommodate the amount of children that would come from that development, correct?
But Councillor Henry, that would be the school board's choice, not ours.
Yes, understood.
And they would have to know their numbers.
But what I'm asking is, would that be commentary that we would receive back at this time, or would they only receive back commentary saying, this is the school that is closest that they could go to? Or what?
That's what they commented back
But
to
would they
planning.
ever say, we're filled up, or these are our numbers? Do they ever give back that kind of
No.
detail?
No.
No, okay. That's kind of what I'm looking for. Thank you very much. I'm going to save the rest of my questions for the developer. Thank you.
Councillor Morin.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Are you able to speak to the time frame on the 3 phases? Like, I know you don't have a crystal ball, but for the developer? Okay, that's good. My next question, developer's going to be busy. So this one, I'm just trying to figure out the affordable agreement, right, as 5 to 10%, and the financing, and are you able to speak to that? Are you, at this time, able to speak to, will there be 5% and 10% affordable housing in that complex?
Through the chair to Councillor Tyler Morin, we don't have the specific details at this stage because we don't have the unit counts for each phase. So we'll expect to see those through each site plan application as they come in for each phase. However, I do understand that the town has recently prepared a draft agreement for affordable housing for all the various projects that are going on. And so I understand that that will be processed prior to the site plan application. So it's sometime in the near future, there will be a general affordability agreement that will be presented to the applicant to address affordability as part of the project. I don't know the details, but I expect, as per the letter that the town sent in support of the MZO, that the 5% was what was proposed at that time, which equated at the time to about 150 units.
Okay, would you be able to, if we tightened up the wording, like, is it the kind of thing where it would be a condition of approval on whether or not those affordable units are there? Is that,
Through the chair, so the application we're dealing with right now is just the subdivision, so there'd be no condition specific to that. But the MZO that was approved for the west block that's being created, through that, there was town support for affordable units to be provided.
Correct.
So we have to enter into a contractual agreement with the applicant to secure for that.
oh, so it would be something
Yeah,
that's going to
it will
happen?
be dealt with that later in the day. It's just not right now with the subdivision.
But I get that, but later, you're saying later it will be dealt with, it will be something
That's correct.
subject to approval. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Chair. It's been said a few times, just want to make sure it's for the public record. This was done via MZO years ago and not via mayor's directive, correct?
Correct.
So all negotiations were done via the MZO process that was, when was this first approved? When did we first, we approved this ages ago, didn't we? Wasn't this with the first list of conversions we had? Right, back in 2020-ish? So now, okay, just want to make sure, so there's no mayor's directive. So there's, you know, the agreement list that comes with the mayor's directive? There's that document? That would not apply in this case. They're just kind of following standard application processes, correct?
Right now, through the chair to Councillor Lee, yes, this is just standard planning, subdivision, creating the development blocks,
Okay.
period.
Thank you. Those are all my questions. Thank you, Chair.
I have no other councillors on the speakers list. I don't see any members of the public. Do we have any online? And no questions submitted at all, right? Okay, cool. Would the, oh my God, I just forgot that. Not the opponent, the proponent. I had opponent stuck in my head before the meeting, and now I couldn't remember what it was. Sorry about that. So we do have a few questions for you. Councillor Henry.
Thank you. So let's go back to apartment, through the chair, apartment or condos, do we know?
So right now, the application is just creating those two blocks, the employment block, the street, and the future mixed-use block. There are about 12 different buildings on that mixed-use block. It's a rather large block, so that's going to come over time. Certainly right now, my clients expressed interest in rental buildings as part of the first phase. Again, by the time we get to one of the later phases, 10, 15 years from now, maybe that's an apartment. I expect there'll be probably a mix of them over the fullness of time. But right now, this application doesn't really secure one way or another. But the first phase we're looking to bring forward is probably going to be rental.
10 to 15 years from now, correct?
No, I'm talking about full build out in 10 to 15 years from now.
Okay, so the first, like do we know how many units, like the breakdowns of 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom? Do we know that?
No, so what we've done right now is we've done all the detailed studies just to show how we're going to break these two blocks up and put the road down the middle and what the phasing is relative to Ringer Road and the need for a cul-de-sac. That's really been all this application's focused on. At the same time, what we've developed is a site plan for the phase one, which is that employment block on the east side of the road. That's already gone in for pre-consultation and we're getting ready to put in that application. And then what we're doing now as we're kind of entering this stage is we're starting to put together that first site plan application for the mixed use block. But we are really at the early days of that. We haven't even got close to unit mix as of yet. Because really we're kind of, you know, baby steps on the way, right? Break up the blocks, do the employment block, that entire site plan, and then move on building by building in that next phase.
So please know that I've received some concern from residents with regards to how many units there will be, how many will be family, and how many of those will have to travel to a school that is not within walkable distance and the traffic of that area. These are concerns. Now, you know, we do have a neighborhood, Salem, just south of Taunton, where you have to cross Salem Road. We have crossing guards there. So obviously, you know, we have measures in place to keep folks safe. But I just want you to know the residents of the area concern, the feedback that I am getting, so that you're aware of that. One of the other things that we got was, that I received was with regards to traffic in the area and increased traffic. And we know that's going to come with no matter what's in there. I'm glad to see that you're extending Ringer Road into that area, much needed, long time coming, so very happy to see that. Thank you for that. Will that also connect into the back of Home Depot and Walmart? Or is that, like, Ringer Road just stops with your development? There's no way to get through the back area onto this new Ringer Road, correct?
So the Ringer Road construction, would be secured through the subdivision, done through detailed design. Ultimately, whether the plaza to the south of it makes connection to it, I presume they would have to make submission to city staff in order to, ask for permission to make those connections. It would be a public road. So if there was a logical place, but we haven't actually looked at that. That'll be their application to make at a later time once that that is built. I would also like to just to the point of community services, because I think it's important. The way this MZO was drafted, circulated, and even before that conversion application, I think it was the end of 2019, I think. It was right before COVID, actually. There's actually trigger points. So there's a certain amount of residential units, and then there's trigger points for the amount of commercial and non-residential that comes with it. So there's actually 2,800 units, but about 40,000 square meters, so almost 1,500 jobs when we had done our calcs back then, of actual employment coming with this mixed-use development as well. And so the idea is that certainly when you're building that, there'll also be community services in these mixed-use buildings, right? Daycares and things like that that are going to definitely be needed. And frankly, it's in everyone's benefit to make sure those go in there, because you don't get, in the way this MZO is structured, you don't get more residential units until you hit a certain amount of non-residential space. So there's actually a trigger in the way this one was structured to make sure those community services, those elements of a complete community come. So hopefully people who are living in this area, and sorry, I'm going off topic here.
No, this is good information. Go ahead.
Yeah, hopefully they don't need to drive as much because we're building mixed use here, and it's actually built into that MZO. There are a couple of improvements to the streetscape or the street network that also will be required as part of this in the full build out. So I believe there's right turn lanes at Salem and Kerrison that are needed, taper lanes.
Yes.
A right turn lane into Ringer Road, I believe, a right turn lane out of Ringer Road, and a left turn lane. So there are certain also improvements beyond just Ringer Road being built that are actually contemplated in the fullness of time. The subdivisions identified all of those, but the trigger points are going to be on a phase-by-phase basis as we move through the site plan process.
Sounds very exciting, and I like the fact you mentioned the walkability, because there's something similar to that in Promenade in Thornhill, where you have the big mall across the street, and then you have like another community just right across the street with everything that you're talking about now, and then you have your bigger malls next door to do your grocery shopping and all that kind of thing, right? So right there, you can walk to Walmart, you can walk to Home Depot, you don't need vehicles for that. And your units, the newer units have less parking spaces than what was previously developed. So because you're on a major arterial road, this encourages more transit, this encourages less vehicles on the road, more transit, so it sounds good. Thank you for everything.
Councillor Morin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, sir, for being here and for choosing Ajax to invest in. So the span of the project, first question you said would be 10 to 15 years to make it look like those nice renderings-ish.
So I'm being very colloquial there when I was saying that. I wasn't intending to give an actual specific timeline. It's definitely going to be phase by phase. So the way they've started is we've already moved into the site plan.
Got it.
For that employment block. We've done the pre-con.
Farthest east.
Farthest east, exactly. And we're starting to develop the first phase site plan on the west side of the street. So the things that the pieces of the development that could be done, constructing that north-south road and the cul-de-sac, right? Matching the infrastructure investment to the actual development timeline.
Yep.
So those two, our client is actively putting together site plan applications for. The balance of them, is going to, I think, take a lot of time to come. We got to get through the site plan for the first one. That'll probably take a year. As we hit the end of that and move into sales and marketing and construction, you know, you move into your next one and on you go.
Okay.
Yeah, there's 12
understand.
buildings in there. There's a lot.
Like I said, I understand you don't have a crystal ball. And then again, can you speak to the affordable agreement and the 5 to 10%? Again, I know that's far into the future, but is it your position? Sorry, I asked you a question and kept going.
Is this, oh, there we go. So when you say the 5 and 10, I think the 5 was what was originally supported. The 10 typically is coming from people who are looking for CMHC support for their
Correct.
rental projects.
Yeah.
And certainly that is very much a theme of the day and something my client is contemplating as well. So if they move through the CMHC program, they'll have to do the 10%.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they'll be proceeding with the 5%. And I believe that would be done phase by phase on a site plan basis.
And you're comfortable that that is a condition of approval?
That's not, I believe that was a condition of the MZO, and it's part of that site plan process in the future, but it's not necessarily tied to the subdivision. So the subdivision, what we're doing, and all we're doing right now, is taking one big piece of land
Yeah,
and
no, I
saying it's going to
understand.
be 3 with a road down the middle.
But
So,
in the
yeah.
future, do we have a guarantee of 5% affordable housing? And
As
with
per
it-
the MZO, there'd be a minimum of 5%.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
That's cool. Yeah, and then final question, how many units did you say, again, if it came to a full fruition in a decade or whatever?
It was 2,873 is what's in the MZO. But again, there's various gradients and triggers for that.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much.
Deputy Mayor Lee.
Thank you, Chair.
Say it right. Deputy Mayor Lee.
I had the shortest last name, too. Michael, it's good to see you. Thank you very much for answering our questions. At the end of the day, there'll be restaurants in this facility, right? We envision like possibly like some of the retail grade to be restaurants.
Certainly, there's a very wide range of uses that we've kind of worked into that MZO.
Who determines that? Is that you who determines that, or is like the building facilitator? Like, I'm always curious because like we have this area in Ajax, the Pickering Village, where it's like it was so much potential, but so many dentists now, and I want to make sure like we try and get ahead of that now. So it's like, is that something the big area group would decide, or?
No, so typically the way it would work is at a zoning level, we would try to keep the uses very broad, because what you want to do is make sure these spaces are activated. So the smaller from a zoning perspective, which is the MZO in this case, the smaller we make that list of permitted uses, you know, the more tailored that experience could be, but also the more likelihood that that space is going to have trouble surviving over time, right? We want this to be vibrant space that can be flexible over time. So we actually have a pretty big range of uses. When you get to building permit and site plan, that's when you design those spaces. And of course, you can design them to be more likely to take a daycare, a grocery store, or a restaurant.
Sure.
And then, but ultimately, a lot of the spaces in a mixed-use tower, which is what you're actually going to see here, are really designed to be also very flexible and as flexible as possible because they want to be able to bring in as many people. The only thing that's really needs a site-specific design is if you're going to have a grocery store, an urban format grocery store in a podium, because that needs to be very specific in terms of how that can actually function with all those support columns and elevator cores. Otherwise, you generally tend to see them built in a generic manner so that they could take all manner of different uses over time.
Okay, well, speaking as the, you know, the other council in that area, I think we're missing like a 5-star restaurant in Ajax, and I'd love to kind of see that in Ajax, but appreciate it. It looks like a great development. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Henry, you've spoken. Can I have Councillor Dyes jump ahead of you? Then I can take you off the list. Okay, Regional Councillor Dyes.
Thank you. Just a quick question about the green space, since you've kind of gone into that area. You've got 7,400 meters of park space. So in obviously a planned environment like you've got here with the number of high rises, will you separate some parcels of that land into separate green spaces according to buildings, or would you do it all in one area?
That is actually a great question, and that's something we're working through with staff currently. Sorry, thank you for turning that on. I can see you see me struggling with this, so appreciate that. So Ultimately, that's actually something we're working with staff on right now in terms of how do you implement it? Do we break it into various small pieces? Do we keep a larger piece? Certainly the MZO secures for 7,500 meters squared of space, so 0.75 hectares. And we're actually currently working through staff with staff right now to say, is it better to have one large space? Is it better to have one medium-sized space and multiple spaces broken through, or some combination of both? The plans right now are just securing for the amount of space. And certainly one of the things to consider is if you're going to make them condo responsibility, you do want them to be smaller spaces so that you're not overburdening these condos because they would have to maintain them. If it's going to be town space, potentially, then it could be a bigger space that's more communally available to the larger group. So there's multiple factors that actually get into that. Don't quite have the answer yet, but it is something we're actively looking at. The important part right now is that that space is secured for in the zoning.
Well, I appreciate that, and over time, I've found that, the way communities build and meet each other through dog leash-free parks and children's playgrounds. So sometimes separating those can be good, but thank you for your answer.
Okay, I don't have anybody, oh, Councillor Henry.
I just want to add to Councillor Lee. So I know it seems redundant, but we do actually get a lot of requests for 4- or 5-star restaurants and where folks could host an event. So please, seriously, do keep that in mind because there is actually a need for that. Thank you.
I think that's the end of the speakers list. Thank you very much. I did forget to ask if there was any disclosure of pecuniary interest. Kind of bad timing now, just before we adjourn. Anyway, sorry about that. So we have none, right? Okay, I'm covered, Jen. Yeah. I don't have any other questions. We're good now? I can just go right to the motion, right? Okay. So we have a motion on the floor. It is moved by Councillor Henry and seconded by Regional Councillor Dyes that the draft plan of the subdivision application SA 2025-01 be approved, subject to the conditions of the draft approval substantially provided in draft 1 in this report. That the Director of Planning and Development Services or their designate be authorized to grant the draft approval of the future draft plan of condominium application, and that it be required to facilitate the future development of the portion of the subject lands. Is there any questions or comments about this motion? Seeing none, I'm going to open the vote. That passes. Yeah. And I have a motion to adjourn, moved by Councillor Morin, seconded by Councillor Lee, that the June 2nd meeting of Community Affairs and Planning Committee be adjourned. Is there any objection? Okay, I'll open the vote. I know, it's pretty cool, right? Councillor Dyes objects. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.